Chicago Heights is a film based on a novel that came out at the beginning of the 20th century that the Modern American Library listed as the 24th finest novel ever written, period. And that Hart Crane called a chapter of America's consciousness that our country should read on its knees. It came out to those kinds of accolades. And yet it has not yet been adapted to a mainstream Hollywood feature because the book is very resistant to adaptation. That's what we're taking on with this project. In most novels and in most films, you connect with a single protagonist. You follow the fortunes of that character throughout the narrative. In the case of Chicago Heights, you've got characters who come in, you meet them, you experience some of the torment of their lives, and then they vanish. And it's a bit of a challenge to an audience, I think, to let go of their expectations of structure in cinematic storytelling and to follow this narrative in the way that it goes.
Nathan Walker, you know, an observer, definitely an observer, you know, main character. But, you know, he is the guy who's telling the story, so, you know, he's everywhere. And I kind of felt like not only was he an observer, but he was kind of like a loner because he kind of kept to himself. And, you know, he just observed, stayed back, and just really looked at what was going on around him. So I really like that. He's kind of like mysterious.
One of the big challenges of making this film is that it's set in roughly 1910, and we're making it in 2008. We have no budget. There's no way we're going to Clyde, Ohio, which is where the stories were set. The book is called Winesburg, Ohio. There's no way we're going to get you know, those locations and be able to honor, be completely faithful to the book in its locations and in the way that Anderson cast his group. So we looked local and trusted, as Anderson did in setting his stories where he wrote them and in the time that he wrote. We trusted where we were, and we trusted when we were. And we kind of made Sherwood Anderson's work rise to that challenge. Is it still as powerful taken out of that context and into our context? Is it still a relevant message if you cast it in a different way and use completely different locations? And I don't know. I don't know yet.
I played the role of Elizabeth Walker, who is the mother of Nathan Walker. Young Elizabeth Walker is a bright and enthusiastic young woman who is really ready to go out and experience the world. Younger Elizabeth had dreams, and like anyone, when your dreams die, I believe that something dies within you, and that's what happened to older Elizabeth. She witnessed her dreams die, and I believe a death occurred on the inside of her. And the only way that she saw her dreams ever having the potential to come to life was through her son, Nathan Walker.
When we moved this story from the 1919 to the 2008, he was thinking about the anachronism. So that was like a very one big notion of this film. So okay, so to accomplish this anachronism, what is the visual characteristics of the film? And the director came up with a black and white idea. And then also, that was like a fascinating idea. We are living in the digital world. Vivid color, more crispier than any time. But now we are talking about the film with the black and white, the contemporary story. So we are kind of mixing with this old story and the new story and then very old cinematic techniques and then very new cinematic tools, which is HD. And then we used a lot of cinematic languages in 1940s. We'll try to study some compositions from the Citizen Kane, like the low angle or the extreme high angle, and then we try to make some very contrasty situation as we watch the Grapes of Red.
My name is Benny Stewart, and I play the character of Dr. Reefy, Dr. Eli Reefy in Chicago Heights. His struggle was with truth. I also believe it was with loneliness, feeling distant and apart from the rest, yet still he could take in their secrets, but his own was that he longed. He longed for someone who truly understood what he felt was the truth. And until Elizabeth came along, no one had really understood him in that way.
There's a moment where Andre playing Nathan is sitting next to Keisha playing Elizabeth in her deathbed, and he's looking down at the floor, kind of like this, and he's got his hand at his forehead. And we're out of focus, and Sang-hoon is zoomed in to collect that focus on his eyes, so we were seeing just this much of the side of his face, and it's out of focus, and he's kind of blinking. And slowly the focus resolves, and we're staying there, it's static, and this young man looking down at the floor. And the editor is elected to keep that moment in the film, and in doing that, we've got kind of the distillation of what it would feel like to be in the presence of someone you love who is dying slowly, and how long those moments feel. There's a line in the film that goes, "The days are long here," and it's no more evident than it is in that particular moment. It's only just a few seconds, but when you linger on the appropriate moment and on the right frame, an awful lot can get conveyed.
Well, I played the Reverend Curtis Hartman, obviously a deeply religious man who is going through some changes, spiritual changes, psychological changes. He's definitely a man of God who is also very much a man, and that turns out to be a source of conflict throughout the movie for him.
We try to talk a lot, not just only the visual, not only just the film, but also like as a filmmaker. And then, okay, what do you prefer? What kind of film do you like? And then what kind of a style do you like? And then I think that conversation really helped me to understand his visual. As a DP, I think the most important thing is understanding director's visual. And then after that, I can just create my own and I can suggest my visual style to the director. But in the end, that's director's call. But my job is to kind of make his visual perfect.
I had such a great rapport with Sang-hoon Lee, who's just a brilliant cinematographer. We had such a great dialogue that we reached the point where we didn't even need to articulate. When we found the frame, both of us would make these weird kind of sounds, like we go, move it a little bit, stay right there. That kind of thing happened frequently, and it was kind of comedic, and it reached a point where people were calling us Dan Hoon, that we were conferring so frequently. And it's a remarkably intimately impersonal story, and that sounds like an oxymoron. It is. He looks into the hearts and souls and the secrets of his characters, and yet he does it at a distance, to the point where you feel detached. It's a kind of a delicate balance, and whether or not it works, you wonder from time to time whether you really understand what the narrative is about, and so you just trust the feeling if it's there. And I know that one of the things that we're going to talk about at some point is the music, the role of music in this film, and we wanted music that would be that would have the antique feeling that the text does. And so we're going to kind of old-sounding gospel, acoustic piano, voices, singing kind of gospel-type words and old spiritual pieces. It elevates everything. And that whole sense of detachment, that whole sense of impersonal kind of intimacy that feels awkward when you're reading the book, all that kind of gets stripped away, and it becomes something very, very beautiful and intangible, and that's where the promise is.
Nobody, nobody, nobody knows. Nobody, nobody knows. Who am I? Who am I? Nobody, nobody, nobody knows. The last soul on a summer night. The last soul on a summer night. The last soul on a summer night. The last soul on a summer night.